Okay. Let us call the meeting to order. We all have the agenda. Welcome, everyone. The only member of the public with us so far is Victor Langelo, who will be he's on our agenda in a few minutes. And I don't think there's anyone on Zoom yet.
You.
Just me, good. Keep it that way. So are there any things to add or swap around on the agenda? I think the early items go quickly enough, so we're not holding Victor up too much. Okay, so we'll skip public comment and go right into administrative items. The minutes of the May 13th meeting were circulated. Are there any changes, any corrections, any additions? Hearing none, just raise your hand if they're approved. Thank you very much, unanimous. And we just have the one calendar item coming up, which is on our usual workshop night. And it's almost at our usual workshop time. It's 4:30 to 6, right? That's what we decided to do. And right here in this room. And is there anyone here who, hi Jeff, who has not, is not able to come? Andy, okay.
We got 2.5 weeks left, and then I'm retired, so it's a
Gotcha.
little easier.
Yeah.
What's the date, Susan?
It's the 18th. Yeah, 4:30, right here. And invitations have gone out to all of the committee members. There was a little misunderstanding about what was actually intended, but we meant for all of the committees to get them. And then of course, it's open to the public. Anybody who has participated in any way, we invite them to come, get involved, ask questions. I've reached out to a couple of people who have come to some of our meetings to let them know that this would be a good time for them to come. We'll see what kind of attendance we have. Okay, so why don't we, in the next agenda item, number 4, recode matters, why don't we bring the proposal from the Topsham Conservation Commission up to the top of those bullets so that we could hear from Victor earlier rather than later. Victor, of course, you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting, but you know, this way at least you won't have to sit through things that so.
Pardon me, not familiar with TCC is
Topsham Conservation Commission.
it's a whole separate group.
It is. It's like the historic district. It's a commission, so it actually has a different level of I think, authority.
It's a permanent, established by statute, so it's a permanent committee.
Okay.
Like say this one's an ad hoc committee.
Yeah, and maybe, Victor, you could just give us just a tiny bit of general information for the folks who are not familiar with TCC in terms of your scope and your charge.
Yeah, we're, many towns in Maine have a conservation commission, and we're charged generally with managing town-owned property, easements on properties that are given to the town or purchased by the town, and also education, generally about conservation, recreational needs, etc., around town. Some conservation commissions serve towns that don't have a rec department or something like that, so they actually do a lot of sort of ball fields, stuff like that, as well as pure conservation. We have a rec department, so our commission generally focuses on pure basically land conservation and helping other departments deal with invasive species or other natural situations. We help develop a forest management plan for the transfer station and for the rec fields, and sort of.
Do you hold easements?
We do. We have currently easements.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. One of them is right around the corner, it's on Pleasant Street. There's a new development there, well, it's not new anymore, but there was a development there, affordable housing. And they got extra credit if they conserved part of the property, so there's 2 acres of conserved land behind that building. That's the town easement. And it joins, the reason we did it was that it joins the open space that's part of the Highland. So the trails connect. And it's got a lot of new bases. Another story. Is that enough?
So,
I could talk for.
yeah. And we'd probably love to hear it, Victor, and more, questions can come up as, yeah.
So, I'm here, I don't know how far back I should go. I guess, did everybody get the letter that or memo I sent? Yeah, okay. So the basic idea is that we've been trying to figure out how to improve we did a natural areas plan in, started in 2007, but it was adopted 2010, I believe. And the idea behind that was to quantify what people in town really value. And with a whole bunch of data behind it, basically, here's where all the rare species are, and here's, where continuous habitat exists and stuff like that. And then, the townspeople sort of weighed in and said, oh, this is more valuable than this, et cetera. We came up with essentially a map that shows where we really value the town property. I mean, as natural lands. And so, and then there were a bunch of implementation strategies. And a third of those were basically zoning related or ordinance related. And what ended up out of that was that there were, instead of the traditional 1.5 acre subdivisions in the rural area in R3, they offered 3 options of a large lot subdivision, the traditional, and then an open space subdivision, where 30% of the developable land had to be conserved and had to be connected to existing open space in some way, or a trail easement, or a trail or something like that. As of to date, we've had 1 open space subdivision that was completely flew under the radar, was not intended to be an open space. I mean, we would never have guessed that this was an open space subdivision. It's right in the mall. So it was a mistake. We didn't, as you write ordinances, you don't think of all the possibilities. And they got 30% of the land. They got the Department of Environmental Protection to agree to conserve it, conserve the parcels that they didn't want. And at the last minute, the DEP pulled out. And so they begged the town to accept the easements, and it's Mount Woods, and it's a nice development. It's where we want development, et cetera, et cetera. And so they twisted our arms. We got some money out of them for future possible enforcement action, and so we have an easement there. But that's not what we intended for it. So anyway, it hasn't been used except in that one very weird case, and we've closed that loophole. I think. We'll see if it's tight enough.
And that loophole was closed at special town meeting. Is that correct or not?
Oh, it has to be. I don't remember exactly. I mean, we closed it like this was
years ago.
Yeah,
okay.
This was 10 years
okay.
ago. I don't remember the details off the top of my head, but
yeah.
I have to go back and look. But we basically said, exclude, R1. We didn't actually say exclude R1, but we wrote into the ordinance basically this, you can't do it in this area. So anyway, it hasn't been used. It is, well, neither of them have been used. There's also another option that was developed just in conjunction with the National Areas Plan. It wasn't part of the implementation strategy, but it was mentioned in there, which was the development transfer ordinance. Somebody who wants to build a development in town and wants denser, put in a denser development than would normally be allowed, they could in turn provide funds to purchase conserved land in the rural area. That also has never been used. And so we're not protecting, unfortunately, what this means is we're really not protecting the rural area. Not that there's been a ton of development there, but there has been some. And the question is, hopefully over the summer, we'll get some more feedback on exactly, we have an intern who helped us do some mapping to give us a little more detail on how much development and what it would look like if we continue to develop with the current laws. And so, and then, anyway, so the thought is that we're doing this recode effort. We were going to do a new update to the natural areas plan and try to figure out new implementation strategies. That's been delayed. It was part of the comprehensive plan implementation strategies for the Conservation Commission, but it hasn't happened yet. It's halfway through. We're 5 years out. So anyway, the thought was to fold that into this recode. I did notice that in the draft ordinances, you do have the open space subdivisions or provisions there still. They're pretty much, I didn't compare them precisely, but they're pretty much the same as they were. There's just one addition, which was, I should have marked it. Which was that in certain cases you had to do an open space subdivision. And I don't remember the exact wording of that, so excuse me. Looked at it yesterday and I already forgotten.
In the proposed code.
In the proposed code, which is new from I think the previous code.
Right.
And
so did that sound good to you?
I mean, yeah, it's a great addition. I have no complaints about it. It's just not going to do much because it's a very limited situation. And so anyway, so my proposal, I mean, what we're thinking about from the Conservation Commission standpoint is ways to tweak the existing or improve or adjust the existing ordinances to make them more effective. They go from suggestions of tweaking the open space, allowing even more dense development. See, the advantage of the open space is you conserve part of the property, but you get denser development in the rest. So you either end up with the same number of homes, hopefully maybe one extra, but maybe we should make it so that they really are, they can put even more, even denser. Now this isn't a rural area, there's no septic, there's no water. So they have to be able to, there has to be big enough space for leach field, et cetera. So, so that can put some constraints on that. It does mean that they also don't have to have as much power, utilities don't have to go as far, the roads don't have to go as far, et cetera. That's the carrot. The other possibility is a stick, which is that, and this is true in a number of other towns, in certain zones, like the rural zones, they don't allow traditional subdivisions. They only allow open space subdivisions. So that's one possibility. That might be constraining here. I don't know. We'd have to, but so that's another option. And the other, I mean, and we can do a number of things in between. We can say, sorry, there's another third option, which is basically impose habitat mitigation fee when people develop in certain parts, particularly if we use our natural areas plan, any of the medium or high value parcels in that plan, there would be a habitat mitigation fee, basically, so they'd have to pay extra in order to be able to develop there. So we could say only open space subdivisions could happen there. So there's a lot of different variations here. I'm sorry to give you, a menu, a tree of options here, but so that's what I'm proposing is some sort of tweak. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. I'm thinking, let's start the ball rolling, and when we do eventually get the natural areas plan updated, I don't think the data is going to change much. I don't think we're going to find new rare habitat species that are, I mean, we probably find a little, spot here and there, but I don't think we're going to redesign the map in this new update. What we're going to do is actually look at things that we haven't looked at before, the build out analysis, basically. and sort of tweak the implementation. Like, how do we get what we want from where we are to, so anyway, and so we can battle, at that more, but it's probably gonna be, I don't know, if we get the plan, if we get a consultant hired next year, maybe, and then we get a plan done and public meetings and stuff like that, it's gonna be 3, 4, 5 years before that plan is actually in code. So,
Yeah.
or, implemented.
In terms of a new natural areas plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking almost the next CPIC, the next comprehensive plan.
Right.
So I'm just thinking, I'm hoping that we can do something here that would help us, in the meantime. So anyway, if everyone's read the memo, okay. I'm open for more questions.
Yeah, I have a few too, but go ahead, Andy.
How is this different than, I think we have a cluster subdivision option?
We have an open space subdivision option.
Is that the same thing?
Yes.
For example, 200 acres out on 96. If we wanted to do a subdivision there, we wouldn't want to subdivide the whole 200 acres just for the reason for the cost of the roads and the utilities and things. And we can, we're looking at clustering those together. And all you're saying is, and I think that's already in the ordinance, is that we have to donate or preserve through a third party
Some of that
open space or all of it.
Yeah, well, we have to make sure, the idea is that we have somebody, I mean, it's great to say, okay, this is gonna be open space, but if nobody can enforce it, then it really is meaningless. We've had that happen in the past.
But what would trigger it even more for us would be that bonus. Say if it was 200 acres and the minimum lot size was 2 acres, you theoretically could have 100 lots if it was all upland or, the perfect scenario. But if you could give us 110% of that, then that gives us a bonus to go that route. And I've seen that in other communities too, where you give just a little bit more bonus, so you actually get more units, but you preserve a lot more of the land.
Right.
I like
And
that idea.
it also-
I don't think that's in ours, is it?
It also can preserve the viewscape too, because a lot of times, driving by, the open space might be a farm field, that might be the valuable part that somebody wants to conserve. Whereas, often the trees, you could put in a circle road or something and some houses, and people wouldn't even notice it. They'd still see the farm field. So that's, sort of a double bonus. In these cases, that's the kind of thing that's happened in, I think it's Falmouth.
So maybe you're just answering my question, which is, and you referred to what a couple of other towns have done. And is Falmouth one of the ones that?
I believe I meant to go get the list of towns that have done. I know Poland has a required open space subdivision if they're going to develop in their rural town, in their rural area.
Yeah.
And it's either Falmouth or Freeport that has an open space subdivision. And they both come to mind because one of them had a requirement. And this may not be that may not require open space subdivision, but they had a fairly high percentage of the property that needed to be open space. I think it was like 70%. I just remember it, I was like, whoa. But anyway, don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and look and get that information. It's not trivial to figure it out. Unfortunately, I wish it were. But I have to go dig through a whole bunch of old notes. So.
Thank you, Victor. I assume other folks have questions. Go ahead.
It's really a comment on the idea of incentives has always seemed to be far more effective than sticks when possible. And it helps mitigate the resistance that people have to being told what they can and can't do with their land. So just an opinion.
Yeah, but and then if somebody doesn't take it, we end up losing something valuable. So I don't both ways.
Oh, I'm not suggesting
that
it shouldn't be shouldn't be a requirement, but if there are ways of encouraging people by saying, yeah, you can do it the old way and continue to sprawl, or you get X number of more units on your land by conserving open space. That's what I was referring to.
The other thing to keep in mind is that I don't know if you follow footnotes or anything in my footnotes, but if we build, in most towns, and I had a footnote to a survey of surveys, a survey of studies of cost of community services, which is basically how much does it cost for a community to service this property versus how much tax revenue does it generate. In almost every town in that list, except for maybe two, the cost of community services exceeds the revenue, the tax revenue. So, and it gets worse as you get farther from town, especially with our zoning. The road frontages get longer, so there's more road to plow and maintain and pave for every house lot, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, costs go up. Farther for emergency vehicles to drive to, farther for the school buses to go, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, so we have that. Yes, it's nice not to tell people what to do, but at the same time, they're taking our dollars. So, I mean, we kind of have to, decide where that balance is. All right.
Thank you for that. That's a sort of an underlying piece of information, analysis under all of the 2019 comp plan.
Yeah.
That issue of value per acre.
Yeah.
And how this sprawl actually has bankrupted towns.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so it's a both and. It's about let's preserve the rural areas that people love, and let's strengthen the town's tax base and the way infrastructure relates.
Yeah.
I think you have.
Yeah, I have a few questions.
Go for it.
One is give me some of the history of the size limits. There was some different acreage limits in write up about it was migrating from larger to smaller, smaller to larger. As far as the size of the parcel and the subdivided parcel sizes.
Oh, well, currently, in R3, the minimum lot size is 1.5 acre. Is that what we're referring to?
Yeah.
And in a open space subdivision, it's 75% of that, I think is the way it's written. I'll have to, so it's 75, yeah, so it's smaller, but not terribly small. Basically, a lot of R2 is also without water or sewer. In some cases, they have water but no sewer, the septic systems. And the lot sizes there are 3/4, actually less than that, 300,000 square feet, I think. So it's about 3/4 of an acre, roughly. And so we could go down. I don't see any reason why in the rural area you couldn't go to the same. If you can allow septic in R2 when that size lot, then why not do it in R3? So we could actually make that 50%. So you could get quite a few more homes in there. So anyway, those.
Yeah, I guess where I was going with it was what I was questioning is kind of how this proposal would migrate from be fundamentally different from the current ordinance. And how
I mean, if the opens, basically the differences I would see is that we could allow more smaller lots in the open space subdivisions. So instead of them being constrained to only 75% of what they call underlying zone, which is in that case R3, is 1.5 acre, we could make it 50% or 60% or something like that of that underlying zone. So they could be much smaller lots. And the advantage of it, I mean, basically it doesn't feel, I know homeowners, people like the rural area, they like the open space. Well, but they're going to be looking at the open space. I mean, they're going to be there. The open space is going to be right next to them. It's not like, and it's not like they're going to be forbidden from using it in some way. I mean, but their property, where they can put lawns is going to be smaller. That's all. So those are the trade-off here. What other changes? The habitat mitigation fee change would be brand new. We do it for solar. So in the solar developments, we wanted to discourage solar developments in pristine areas in town. So we put in a habitat mitigation fee that sailed through it. Nobody complained because it was for solar. But it basically charged a per square footage of land that was disturbed, and we considered anything underneath the solar panels as quote unquote disturbed. And so we could do something similar here with just the high value or high and medium value habitat areas. So R3 zoning could stay the same, except in those particular areas where if they were going to be developed, then there would be an extra fee to try to in charge, and that could be enough of a discouragement to say make either smaller impact or I'm not going to do it there. Sorry.
Yeah, so if I read your information correctly, this affects the R3 district.
Because I'm on the conservation commission, I'm really focused on the rural area, and I'm really focused on our national areas plan. So I mean, in some parts of the R3, along 196, that the development's going to happen there anyway, and I'm not sure it's not part of. It's nothing right along the highways or the major roads are part of the high value habitat for obvious reasons. So there's flexibility there. I mean, we don't have to change that. I'm really concerned about where the areas that we have decided, the town as a whole, back in 2010 decided we really want to save these parcels, this area of town. And we have some fabulous areas. We've got like 40,000 acres of unfragmented habitat around the Ward Road area. And it's just woods forever. Of course, that is cut every once in a while because it's most of it's under tree growth. Thank you. So most of it's under tree growth. So it is occasionally cut, but it's usually only a 20-acre parcel that gets cut. So it does actually support a lot of habitat out there. So we have a town-owned property out there. There's two of them, 40 and 20 acres. And this last month, we went, the Conservation Commission took a sidewalk out there. We found 2 vernal pools that we hadn't seen before.
Wow.
So anyway.
Do you have a sense of the property owners in the R3 district, if they'd be supportive or resistant to some of these changes?
Of the areas that, I don't know about the whole R3, but of the areas that we're worried about, it's almost all tree growth or open space or farmland. It's just like except for the folks along our Ward Road, which are also tree growth, but they may be thinking, oh, well, I can subdivide my lot. And again, there's a whole other, this is only about for major subdivisions. Somebody can take a lot that they have and carve off an acre and a half for a family member or whatever. And that doesn't come under the subdivision at all. It's a totally different situation. So it's not like preventing somebody from providing some, a house for their child or friend. So. Sorry.
Any other questions? All right.
I'm not a member of this panel. CPIC. I am the planning board liaison to CPIC.
Oh, right, yes.
So my question for Victor, are you planning to try to present something like this with the planning board also?
Well, that was.
I'll answer that one.
Yeah.
We actually asked him not to. He initially wanted to go to Don, and we said, if we're doing this big push to do recode this year, we need any changes in our code to come through this process, because we didn't want to have parallel processes with the planning board changing something and the consultants writing something else and not having it married up and together. So what we asked them to do is to make your suggestions, because we're asking for public comment now on the second draft. So we'd like, CPIC's gonna be collecting those, and then planning board's gonna be workshopping them starting in September. And then whatever planning board and CPIC think needs to be changed, will get sent to the consultants in November, December, they're gonna change that. So we wanted to have just one process rather than two, keep things manageable.
Oh, okay, because my understanding was that CPIC was just addressing basically town center, not the outlying areas, and the planning board was addressing.
It was, but now we merged it together.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Because,
Must have been one of those meetings we didn't have.
no, because you were, over the winter, you were doing the
Yeah.
cleanup stuff. CPIC's been, for about a year or more, been doing the town center stuff. The latest draft is no longer separate chapters, it's one complete code.
Yeah.
So the plan now is that CPIC's gonna be rolling it out, trying to get public input over the summer.
For the
and
whole
then for everything.
Yeah.
And then planning board's gonna be doing workshops on everything in the fall, and so we wanted to deal with one merge code, because it just makes for errors if we have two processes going on and they're not linked up and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then my next question.
I mean, you know, basically that was my thought, was planning board, but then anyway, so yes.
There are some good sized areas of open land in the R2. So if you're talking about, you know, like a development bonus type idea, should that also be headed into the R2 as well as the R3? I mean, I think some really good sized areas that still exist in R2, not developed yet.
Yeah, I'm going through, I mean, I can think of part of the Hunter's properties in R2, I think, but
Yeah, I'm just looking at the map.
and that is, we have, the national ice plan doesn't focus just on R3. It actually, any place in town, and so there are high value habitats that are part of R2 as well.
Yeah.
So that's, I should say, I did say I was only focused on R3, but that's the primary focus. There are anything that's high value habitat we want to keep, so no matter where it is. And so, yes, there are some R2. I know that the Hunter's property is there, and I think there's a farm, forget the name of it, off of Tedford Road. That's might be part of it. I have to check the maps. I don't usually get into that kind of detail unless something comes up. Oh, what about this property?
Well, I just pulled up the map while you're talking.
Yeah,
I'm just seeing some good sized areas that are not, at least parceled out anyway.
yeah.
In the R2, like there's some off of River Road down, or some of it is where the water district is.
Yes, the water district's got a big parcel there, but that's not
That's not
gonna get subdivided. I don't think so.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some larger family, homes there, or, private parcels there, I should say. One of them's been for sale forever. I think it finally sold. But yeah, no, there are some. Actually, you're right there. I can think of another couple of other parcels in that area that are also, but they're, yes, I guess we should, we could look at that.
Maybe think in terms of R2 as well as the R3.
Yeah. Well, they're not focused, they're not necessarily defined in their natural areas plan unless they have, unless again, all of the factors came together, like, there was deer wintering area, or there was some particular species there, or there was some particular value to the habitat that was there, and also it was valued, for traditional use, or like a farm, or a mill or something like that, and then et cetera. There were 7 or 8 different criteria that were applied, and then everyone looked at those different criteria and said, okay, yeah, this property, this one meets enough of the criteria to say this is to keep. So some of those didn't get in there, and that's maybe why we should do the national areas plan again. But anyway, yeah.
But I mean, a density bonus would benefit the R2 area as well as in the R3 in order to try to preserve areas.
Yes, I agree. Yes.
So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. We're talking about both the R3 and R2, but we're really focused on the areas within those zones that have already been identified as particularly valuable habitat or natural areas in some particular way. So it's not the entire R3 or R2,
Well,
it's,
again,
or is it?
I'm gonna leave that up to you, but I'm gonna say from my perspective, what really matters from a conservation, I should say,
Yeah.
my perspective, from the Conservation Commission's perspective,
Yeah.
what really matters is the high and medium value habitat areas. Those are what we want to protect. Those are, and they connect. I mean, basically, sometimes having a nice parcel that's 10 acres over here, it's not, it's completely surrounded by development, doesn't do much for wildlife
Right.
habitat, unless there's a rare species or something, it's like right on the river and there's something. But other than that, it's probably not going to be considered a high value conservation area. If it's something that's valuable historically or whatever, then yeah, that'd be great. But anyway, so yes, we're trying to focus on those parts that have been identified, or I should say, we should have a flexibility to say, or identified in a future national areas update, because we may discover that there are other parcels that we missed or
Right.
that people now decide are very valuable. So anyway.
And I'm pleased that Larry's looked at the map and you're looking at the areas that you already know. How can we, who are kind of new to this particular, who have been so focused on Topsham Center in the form-based code area, to really look at what this means for as a proposition.
There is an official map of the high value and medium value habitats. It's actually part of our code these days because of the solar.
Is it an overlay? Or
It's not an overlay, it's just a map that feeds into the code, because the cost of the habitat mitigation fee is based on, those parcels, and so you need to be able to identify the parcels.
yes.
So I don't,
So the map does exist
Does
in terms
exist,
of those high value areas.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also the natural areas plans on the website. The natural areas plan itself has maps that show how all of this was put together, but they're kind of small and sort of bubble maps kind of thing, rather than detailed parcel level, but we do have a parcel level one available now, thanks to a former planner.
And there was, I believe, an intern project that charted development in the natural areas over the past, I don't know how many decades, but
That was, yeah, it
that
was,
was about 4 years ago.
yes, it was 2010, 2021, I believe. And yes, it was like from 2010 to 2021. It was basically all the building points, all the
Yeah.
building permits that were taken, whatever you call it,
Yeah.
applied for, in that time period and plotted on the map.
Yeah.
And we'd like to, this summer, hopefully we'll extend that to the current time and also look at it a little bit more expansively in terms of like what they tried to do, Angus tried to do back then was sort of say, well, what's the actual impact of this house? And so drew a 250 foot radius around it.
Yeah.
And so you can see, in the rural area, you can kind of see, obviously in the urban area, it's like it's all like it's all, but in the urban area, you can kind of see, that does have a significant impact, even though it's just a building point. It's
Right.
So we're going to try to extend that a little bit. I'm not sure, we're going to have to discuss a little bit about exactly how to do that with the data that's available. But just say, what kind of impact does this have, and what would it have if we actually continue to develop? And so anyway.
You've given us a lot to think about. I'm not sure how we proceed from here, to be honest. Is there anything as I know Pam, who's now the liaison to the Conservation Commission from CPIC, so she'll keep in touch with what's going on, but is there anything from your meeting and your discussion, attending the meeting, that you want to bring in here?
There was some talk about habitat corridor.
Oh, yes. One way we could tweak the open space plan is to give a benefit or an additional benefit for habitat corridors, not just open space that connects to other open space, but maybe a habitat corridor through the property. So sort of make it a little more flexible. And so yeah, that's another, I'm sorry, yes, I forgot about that. I think I put it in.
I think you did, but it's helpful to be reminded
Yeah,
here.
yeah, so the idea is basically just another way to say, okay, well, it doesn't have to be a concept, it still probably has to have an easement on it, but nevertheless, it doesn't have to be something that, you know, connects to an existing open space, other than at, you know, maybe two ends, just a couple of points, but it provides, habitat, you know, to be able to move through that area. And so, I mean, you know, if we fragment some unfragmented habitat, basically if it's, you know, a 40 acre subdivision that cuts right through it, it's like, wow, you just destroyed, you know, some of the value of the habitat around it too. But if you provide a way for deer and, you know, other animals to migrate through there, particularly, you know, if there's a vernal pool over here and the you know, the salamanders can't get to the forest or trees, you know, in this parcel, then that vernal pool becomes a lot less valuable. So,
Yeah.
You know, having that corridor would be helpful. We actually sort of did that or tried to do that with the development off of 196, the mobile home expansion. Yeah, but it was difficult. So anyway, that's another story. But anyway, yeah, those kind of things would be helpful. Yeah.
Are you referring to the mobile home development that's further out toward Lisbon, or the one that's right?
Just the one straight in
One
town.
right, yeah.
He's expanding it to another 90 lots.
Uh-huh.
He's got a lot of natural constraints, so it was a real difficult subdivision, but anyway, yeah.
That was creative drawing.
That was what?
That was creative drawing.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Came before the planning board.
Yeah, oh yeah, it came before us too, because it was like, well, you know, there's no open space provisions here, and it's like, what? And anyway, but you know, our biggest, that was why that whole debate about deed restrictions came up, because we were like, no, we don't allow deed restrictions, and he said, well, but I'm going to own the land. Anyway, I won't go into the story, but basically, and then it got encoded a little bit more flexibly than we had hoped, because that's a slower development, and you know, there's the state would be enforcing, because of the environmental constraints, the state would be enforcing the deed restriction that he was going to put on it. So, but I don't want to be taking deed restrictions, you know, as a permanent conservation reason, because the landowner who grants it has to enforce it. If they're gone, nobody's going to enforce it. So it's useless. You know, it's 20 years from now, somebody else is going to come along and trash it. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway.
One last question. Is there any time between public access and open space provisions in these easements, or is that a
It depends.
procedure or case by case?
It's a case by case situation. Generally, if the land is taking the open space tax benefit, I forget exactly how it's called, but anyway, then they do have to allow open space. So I don't think, we only have a couple of those in town, 2 or 3 of those in town. But yeah, a conservation easement can mean anything from, you know, lots of trails for public access to simply no public access because it's valuable habitat that's going to be protected. It depends on who's taking the easement and what agreement you make. So it's really, and I think constraining it to saying it has to be, you know, public access throughout the property would make it harder for developers to get a conservation BTLT or us to take it. You know, we might take it for recreational purposes, but I don't want to do that for hundreds of these because we don't have the resources to enforce it. We're a 5-member commission, you know, we'd have to be visiting those every couple of years to make sure that the rules are being followed. We just don't have the time. You're taking every meeting going out. So yeah, that has to be taken carefully. But yes, it is up to who's gonna be taking the easement. That's
So if you were going to proceed the way you originally thought, which is to take these ideas through staff to the planning board, what you would do next is what?
Well,
Because you have a few options.
yeah, well, but my original thought was to workshop it with the planning board, get their feedback as to what they thought might work, but they could, support to get through town meeting. So I think that's kind of what I would do with you guys now instead.
Right.
Which is figure out what you think would get through town meeting. Larry, I think will help because he might have some experience with this, but the plan, I don't know. So, I'm open to suggestions as to where to go from here, really.
Right. I mean, it's very clear, I think, to all of us on the committee that protecting open space, both agricultural and just habitat, is a major goal of the 2019 plan. Because we chose to do recode in the way we did, we haven't looked at a few, but not many substantive changes in the area outside of the designated growth area where there's both water, sewer, all that infrastructure, relatively funny shaped town center. So this is kind of a new thought. And
it's going to take a while to wrap the heads around it, I'm pretty sure. So
right, and so I'm kind of wondering if, like, in terms of one of the things that's come up in discussion is to have a sense of, I think Rick was alluding to this in terms of right now, the minimum lot size is 1.5 acres in the R3. It would be very helpful, and I know, we came on the scene at a certain time. I don't know how long, Larry, you've been on the planning board, but were you on long enough? And Victor, do you have that long-term view to have a sense of, like, when did that lot size get established and who pushed for it? It's hard to sort of,
Before my time.
because it's hard for us to judge. I mean, you can always sort of take a direction that we think is a good direction and then get some feedback and see how it flies. But I think it's wise for us to have some sense of the history of how things, what that minimum lot size had been before the 1.5 acres, which, Mark.
So the specific answer, we can research and get back to you on.
Yeah.
My understanding, it was some type of a compromise, and it was brought down to 1.5, something larger. I don't know the details, but we can find that out.
Yeah.
More about your earlier question, what should we do next? So over the next few months, you and then the planning board are gonna be taking comments on all kinds of aspects of this recode. So I think you take, one thing you wanna do is keep track of that list. And then at some point in time, you and or the planning board, or maybe at separate times, we'll go through, and if there's things you think should be massaged or changed, we're gonna work with the consultants and work on those changes. One thing that maybe wasn't another consideration of comprehensive plan as well as affordable housing. So the carrot approach might be the better way to do this, and maybe we don't want to put a mitigation fee if it's an area we want more increased development, because we don't want to make it that much more expensive to develop that area and make it harder to have a workforce that can actually live at right tops.
I mean, I guess that's part of what I'm thinking about is to consider several of the priorities that are all outlined in the 2019 plan, as well as, I think, the ongoing goal of the commission is to keep an eye on, the natural areas and the delicate habitat. And to do that in a way that, my sort of big worry in life is sort of unforeseen consequences. That sometimes it's hard to create a solution and then realize that later on, you're actually, that it's not completely serving your purpose. And you started off by describing that some of the Conservation Commission's ideas or code were
Well-
used in, you know, a
Yeah.
zone that was not intended at all.
Yeah. Well, actually, and the implementation was not necessarily Conservation Commission, it was a prior CPIC that actually created the current code. We had some input into it.
Yep,
But
yep.
there was a lot of compromise that, so it was not our vision necessarily.
Right.
So, I mean, but yeah, and I think, to your earlier point, I believe that the current zoning, there was a 1990s, like mid-1990s revision of the major zones.
In terms of the
R1,
lot
R2,
size.
R3,
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't quote me on that, but I think it was back then. It was definitely before my time, 2006 or 7, so it was before that.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you very much. Any last thoughts before we say goodbye to Victor?
I encourage you to look at I don't know, Scott.
The natural areas plan.
Yeah, Scott,
Yeah.
well, not.
And the implementation piece.
And the map, basically. That'll give you a sense of where we're talking about. So.
That might be something that we want to apply in a focus on in a workshop, you know, July. Any thoughts, Sky, as we?
Not really.
Yeah.
You guys talked a lot about the different opportunities and options and.
Yeah.
The time aspect as well.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you, Victor, for.
I'd be happy to have a joint meeting with the CPIC, I mean, with Conservation Commission, if that would help at some point. So when you get a little further down the road.
Yeah. It won't be that far down the road. We'll see what we can do to combine efforts. Great. Okay, take a deep breath. So it just seemed like a good idea to debrief about the special town meeting and our table and the flyers that were handed out there. Rather than jumping in myself, I'd love to hear what people thought. Did you have any good conversations with people? I know a couple of people were less than enthusiastic, but I think my sense was that there was a fair amount of interest, and I think we took the stack down by about a third. So any thoughts from folks who handed out?
I'm glad we were there.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had representation, we had visual aids.
Yeah.
We had the handout. I think that's a good start. I mean, that was certainly being a town meeting, that was the place
To do it.
to do it.
Yeah.
So I was glad that we did.
Yeah.
Even though, you know, maybe we wish the outcome had been better, but regardless, it's a place to start.
Yeah.
Which we're continuing.
Right. And I think,
Next year.
yeah, I mean, each touch that people have with recode and visuals, I think it will make it easier for them to take in that this is happening and develop questions.
But I'm excited about the town hall, you know, getting that going.
Right.
So this is like a precursor to our emphasis on the town hall, which hopefully will be a lot more vigorous input for us.
Right. So let me put Mark on the spot for a second. Do you happen to know, even roughly, what the attendance was at town meeting?
I don't know officially. My guess is 60 to 70.
Okay, because you know, I'm always the optimist. I was thinking it might be closer to 90, but
No.
no.
Because some of the staff members are residents too.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, and that's.
When a third of the attendance is CPIC, then you know. just-
There was not a third. But, yeah, and I mean, I had a few good conversations. I think it was a start. it's a lot for people to, I think, to take in, which is why on the 18th, you know, to be able to have people come, maybe after looking at the video, more prepared with questions. Speaking of which, with questions and feedback, has anybody taken a look at the form? I think I distributed the form. I don't know if the form works in terms of collecting specific parts of the code and the questions, you know, in a way that we can sort of track it. So I'm gonna be relying on Mark and Sky to kind of help with that. You know, I think we asked in there to have people cite the specific section of the code and then what their question was or their comment, and then that would let us get back to them. And if they have several, you know, spell them all out. But I think form probably does need to be adjusted in order for it to be a billable form and trackable.
So like using like SurveyMonkey or a form collection, like
Yeah,
Google Sheets or something.
We've actually got something that comes as part of our website, where we can build a form right into it. So it's similar to Adobe PDF.
so long as it's built in, that's gonna be the thing to
We could
do.
actually even drop down sections, so we could have, I don't think we want to do every 5.2.3 or something, but we
Right.
could have article 1, 2, 3, if that helps, people could pick what articles.
Yeah, it's pretty open-ended the way it is now. Somewhere between being open-ended and what you just suggested.
Because, I mean, I think we do want to capture exactly what it is that they're having trouble with, either understanding or disagreeing with, you know, because if we don't capture that,
Right.
it's not gonna be
Right.
something we can
So
really.
maybe we're better off leaving it open rather than just saying it's article 2, or rather just an open space for them to fill in, so they can put 2.3.8 or whatever.
Yeah,
With an example, like listed above it, like Article 2.3.8 or something.
So,
yeah,
I sent you all a copy of the article in Portland. They
Yeah.
want to recode too.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if you read the next article the next day, they were excited about the number of people they had at their workshop, which was 17 people. This is the city of Portland. I'm just saying, you've got to hold more open meetings or have enough open meetings, because people aren't, I don't think people are gonna go in and digest and say, I got a question with 6.7.0.1.
yeah,
I think they need to have the interaction. I think, and I think you'll be lucky if you get 30 people, but I think it's a key 30 people that are interested. And I think that's just my belief, that face-to-face, helping them, you know, with the recode in front of us and giving them a chance to come in and spending a few minutes with them. Maybe we have 6 different guests there that they can come in and talk to any of the 6 of us. At least they've got an opportunity to talk. That's just my, I mean,
is that
Again.
how Portland did it?
yes, that's how.
Like.
They had a workshop all day long. and they allowed, I mean, because they didn't know who had schedule issues.
Right,
They
right,
advertised it before. They might have even had 2 days, not back to back, but.
Right.
They might have had 2 days where they just opened up and there was someone there for, I would say, or
with
something.
the consultants.
I can't
That's,
remember.
but that's an interesting,
I'm not sure that it was with the consultant.
so that
It
way,
was to capture their, I mean, we can capture, I think we
Sure.
help know enough, we can capture their concerns. We
Yeah.
might have to go to Leslie to find an answer,
Yeah.
but I don't think you're gonna have Leslie there for 2 days or 8
No.
hours each day, but I think we need to be there. And it's gonna be an hour or two, and there's gonna be nobody here, but again, they had 17 people that first day.
right,
We were kicking around the idea last, when we were looking at the space, we're gonna put it up against that wall of having coffee with the CPIC. And maybe it's 2 hours every week,
Yeah,
certain set time, and volunteers come in.
That would also, as long as you give them an opportunity, more than one window.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you still have it on the agenda, coffee with Rico.
right. And it was really, I think in my message around this meeting was to think about, what makes sense to you in terms of your participation in this. And Robin, who couldn't be here today, said that she thinks it's a good idea and she'd be glad, at least over the course of the summer, to at least come a couple of times to staff it. And if each one of us could do that, a couple of times, that's 16 hits for a couple of hours.
Even if you had 2 an hour, you're still up there, that number.
Yeah.
Of 30.
Yeah.
Prediction.
So is there anybody on board today who's Robin has already weighed in. Is there anybody else on the committee who doesn't feel like they could actually do that for a couple of hours? When we're talking coffee, we're obviously talking morning. I don't know if we talk to folks in, the clerk's office, is there a time of day when most of the traffic comes in? Is it early morning? Is it lunchtime? Is it end of the day? I don't know. I have no way of judging that, but.
I think you probably just accurate mix. It's kind of a rush in the morning, people trying to go before work.
Yep.
In the middle of the day, people try to run their lunch. And then at the end of the day, people leave work earlier, especially come on Thursdays because
We
maybe
open
they
late.
work later or open later.
So the coffee idea could get scrapped, but we could still have a
Ice
variety of times. Yeah, could have a variety of times.
Yeah, ice cream was the thing in the afternoon.
Well, people are here so much more in the afternoon.
Keep the cooler going. So it sounds like we're all on board in terms of just finding the right time that works for each one of us. Great. And we've got the sticky stuff to put the display up. When do you think you can get things down so that we can put the new display?
You give us a date you want to put it up, Jeff, and I'll make sure the stuff's down.
I think once those posters are up, I think that's going to tell us a lot about public response. It in a way will be by far and away the most visible evidence of what the work we've been doing is. So that may inform how we go from there.
So what do you think? When do we put these up? I'm thinking next Monday, 17th. And it doesn't mean all of us have to be there. I certainly will be there. I want Joe there for his eye. I think he's got a good eye about what fits. I don't think I can find time to do it before that, although maybe. I would love to have it up tomorrow. Because then we could probably put something in the crier. Topsham has a page, right? We could put something on that page.
Yeah, and actually, he's been moving his publishing deadline up, so we want to get that ready by around the 17th to get it in.
Uh-huh.
So it would appear in July now, but in July.
Yeah.
Do you want to pencil in the 17th?
Anybody able to put in time before that? So tomorrow's shot, primary day.
Do you know the posters you want?
There are 10 of them. I think we have 10 of them.
I think we
Yeah.
set them
We
aside.
set them aside.
It's just those same 10. So I thought we only had 4 at the school. But
We did. We only had the 4 at the school, but we set them aside.
it's just the ones upstairs then.
Yeah.
There's nothing added or different.
No.
That's to be printed.
Maybe Wednesday.
Let's see. If Wednesday could work. Wednesday could work. Like early afternoon.
Wednesday, like this Wednesday.
Yeah,
Maybe.
you know, I don't think everybody has to come, you know, but you're welcome to come and comment. But I'm thinking kind of like between 1 and 2 is the slot, or if we could, whatever you think would.
Would late morning work for you, like
I've-
10:30?
I've got something from 10 to 11, and I couldn't, so 11:30 on is. Could do 11:30, it's gonna be a half-hour job, that's not gonna be a long job, that's, so we could try 11:30 till 12:30 kind of.
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
Anyone else wanna jump in there? Does that, I mean, are people agreed on the committee in terms of the sooner we get this up, the
Yes.
better?
Yes.
Yeah.
My only problem is that, we may have to go to Augusta to the VA place up there on Wednesday.
Okay,
But I don't know for sure yet, so.
and you could come back, look at it, and comment.
Yes. I can come over anytime and look at it.
That's right. Wednesday, the 12th. 11:30. And so the question is, are you okay to get the stuff down?
As they say in Star Trek, make it so, make it so.
Great. Okay. Good.
How long is it gonna stay out?
This summer,
The summer?
the summer.
Okay, and then the summer is like September.
I thought Labor Day.
So the May town meeting.
I would,
Well,
I would almost say we probably keep it up through the planning board workshops in September, you know, to keep the interest up.
where I'm going with this
Yeah.
is that we need to have a plan for if it comes down here, that it goes to the library or someplace else.
And they won't
That
want all
it's,
this.
that it's still available.
I think it's more likely to stay on this wall, I think, than go to the library. because We have nothing, we have no reason to have to take it down, so we can.
I mean, that's the value of town hall is,
Yes.
Yeah.
But
It's
it
the
needs to,
boss.
it needs to be somewhere from now until May of 2025.
And then probably, I think the best somewhere is right
right
there.
there, yeah. And because I'm guessing that at some point there will be some revisions, so there'll be some different visuals to be.
Right, that's fine.
So I hope that glue stuff works.
That's right, come down and go back up, yeah.
Called sticky stuff, so yeah.
Yeah, we got three packages of it, it's like 4 bars in the thing, and just tear a piece off. Yeah, I never knew about any of this. Yeah.
Someone's
So,
called, but there you go.
so I think we've kind of gone through everything we need to go through in terms of the agenda. Anything in terms of TBI?
We have a board meeting next Wednesday. Matter of fact, they asked me if I could give them an update on CPIC. So I will be able to give you an update on TDI. I mean, I can give you kind of an update right now. We're just finished, and I don't think Mark's seen this yet. Or were you in the scope of work for Wright Pierce?
No, I haven't seen that.
One of the things we think that needs to be done is that we need to know how much it's gonna cost. And with all the components that will go with it to get the water and sewer on the west side of the 95. In 2004, 20 years ago, Wright Pierce did a study and had a cost estimate for that to go over. I came up with numbers. I've got the maths, I don't have the full report. So we figured it would be wise to ask them whether they had all the components already to give us a proposal. And we just finished the scope of what we're asking. And we're actually gonna ask them to go all the way up to Meadow Cross Road. If we were ever to put sewer water on 196 along with those neighborhoods, Blueberry something. I can't remember the name of those neighborhoods. But, you know, just to make sure we've got everything covered for the next 50 years. But who
So,
knows? So we're gonna get a cost proposal from them, and then we'll decide whether we want to spend the money, what maybe we want to do it in phases. Key would be to get a number back from them, what it's gonna cost to get the sewer water. West side.
and what phase are you in right now with them with Wright Pierce?
We,
Gave them the scope of work?
Kurt and I just finished the scope of work this morning, so it's
Okay.
gonna go to them. We'll approve it at the next, CPIC, which is next Wednesday, and then we'll all agree on that, and if we all agree, it will go right Pierce to get a price.
Is the scope the same as what Ray Pierce did initially, or
It's larger.
it's larger? So they,
And things have changed too, because we wanna make sure the annex area is covered in that road. And is it the sewer, it's the water that's going to. Means to. There's a few different.
Right now, water, a high pressure water line is up to the border of T&M and what used to be.
We wanna make
Road.
it, we wanna take it the
And
whole
they'd
way.
like to bring it all the way down to Republic.
So all, it's a larger scope.
so they'll need to do some preliminary engineering to give you a price on the expanded.
We expect this is gonna be expensive, but it's not gonna be a $5,000 job, that's right. Close to 50, or we might have to do it to 25s, but we'll see. We did, we spent, I think it was 25,000 on the survey of the tops of Fair Mall, and that's come in handy a few times when we've looked at some different issues on tops of Fair Mall. So we've actually used that, or the town, or the developers, or the state have used that as far as rules, what they're trying to, it's been.
And that's the most recent
Yeah, that
study
was,
of the
that was
Topsham
just
Fair Mall?
finished last fall.
Yeah. Does that feed into what this committee is doing much, or?
I mean, it would be used, once recode is done, the survey would certainly be used.
They're helpful, yeah.
We actually took the beyond the limits of the right of way into the properties and picked up everything that we could, and that, I think it was a 150-foot corridor. Check it again.
And just briefly describe that, if you would, Andy.
It was a.
Parcel?
Well, no, it was an as-built survey
Ah.
from, 196 all the way to 101 Street. Beyond the cul-de-sac, I mean, beyond the traffic circle.
That traffic, Topsham Fair Mall Road traffic study that was done in 2014 and 15 actually anticipated more road than exists. So the step to trying to straighten out any of the traffic stuff there is first you have to figure out what you own and what you need easements for, and that's what the survey
For
does.
example, if we want to put a smaller traffic circle, at the intersection of Park and Topsham Fair Mall, it's still gonna go out a little bit outside of the perimeters of what we actually have for area for the road, so we'll have to deal with a couple of the landowners to be able to do that, but at least we know what we're dealing with. Some of the signs are on property that probably shouldn't be, some little things that mixed up a little bit, but it's, in all, it was pretty decent.
Any questions from folks? And
I think
that's,
what else is going on?
that's pretty big right there, that
Those two things, but we've got a couple other things that we're going on too.
it would be helpful if you could, because, we have gotten in a couple of different workshop settings, we have gotten questions and really some nudging to why don't you include the Southwest quadrant in your.
I can tell you the biggest issue that I hear on the southwest quadrant is there was a master plan that was developed for about 100 acres, and according to the owners of the property and any developers that come, they said pretty much that master plan, the way it was written, means there'll be no development in the 100 acres. It was driven a lot by the neighborhoods. This is what I was told. I'm told. There's a lot of parameters and things that need to be met in that master plan that can't be met. So if someone was to buy that and say, I'll pay the $12 million to get the sewer and water over across there, and I want to develop that, they're soon going to find out that they're going to have to do a zone change. They're going to have to change that master plan, put most anything in there. I don't know, Sky, whether you agree with me or if you've looked at it yet.
I've seen it. It's
Okay, so I'm not too far off.
And I'm wondering how that, I mean, it's an interesting and odd area, and since you've hung around, Victor, I'm gonna ask you a question. Do you know that area, the southwest quadrant? I'm curious in terms of how it stacks up as a natural area. It's 100 acres, that's not nothing. and habitat. It's a very rocky, very,
It's very sandy,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
sandy.
We haven't, I mean, as a conservation commission, we have, it's not town owned land or anything, so we
right, so you haven't
actually-
really,
actually surveyed it, but everything I know about it is that, it's, other than there was a potential vernal pools there, there's really not much there that would be considered conservation.
okay.
It's surrounded by the highway, development, you know.
Yeah.
Power line goes through the middle of it. On the south side of the power line, there is some wetlands there that could have some value.
Yeah, well, that was
That would be the only area.
Yeah.
That was what potential vernal pool was.
yeah, and if, I don't know if it's actually been crossed off, is it not no longer potential? I forget the details of that, but
Anything that happens there is gonna have to be
yeah, but
delineated.
we have the vernal pool overlay, you know, we have the,
Right,
they can wipe out that vernal pool as long as they can serve two more in the rural area. So, so there's a, you know, there's a way to get around that.
Yeah.
And, it's not, if they protect
but
it,
it's the furthest away from the road. It's
Yeah.
the last piece of 100 acres that would be developed too.
so yeah, in that case, they could meet the state requirements for the. So that would not be a problem, but yeah, it's not, I mean, it's, you know, it's woods, but it's not, I would
It's not
say,
particularly valuable.
Yeah,
habitat.
I would, yeah, some kind of thing that a conservation,
Yeah.
conservation organization would want to preserve as open space.
And
Put
it
that way.
sounds to me, from what TDI is undertaking, that TDI clearly believes that it is
But has you,
valuable development area in terms of,
well,
you know,
even more so because of northwest quadrant, you've got that little bit of development along 96, but behind that's all wetlands. There's no potential for development in the northwest quadrant,
Yeah,
which even
That's
puts more
what
pressure.
the mobile home expansion ran into, was that.
Um,
And they're
whole
even
area.
down the road a half
All
a
areas
mile,
wet.
they ran into it.
It's all wet.
okay,
So, yeah, no, and it's off of it's off of. Major
196,
highway.
yeah.
If you want to put commercial development in, I can't think of a better place. You know?
I hear you. Okay, so thank you, Andy, for that. We'll stay tuned at our next meeting to see what TDI does this coming Wednesday. Or is it 2 days? A week from Wednesday, okay. Okay. Any other thoughts before we adjourn early for the second month in a row? We've had some darn long meetings. This is good. Okay, thank you all. It's 5:49.